Welcome everybody to the special council meeting, the 3rd of June 2020. Members, the purpose of the meeting this evening is to look at the rate revenue options for the draft 2020-21 annual budget and business plan. First, I will go through a call to see and record those councillors that are present, along with council staff. So as I call your name out, will you just indicate your presence at the meeting this evening? So Deputy Mayor Boothby.
Present.
Angus.
Present.
DeBreeze.
Yes.
Haybick.
Present.
Johnston.
Present.
Barrett.
Present.
Troop.
Present.
Schilling.
Present.
Miller.
Present.
Hearn.
Present.
Director of Corporate and Community Services.
Present.
Director of Works and Engineering.
Present.
Director of Development and Environmental Services.
Present.
CEO.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Minutes Secretary.
Present.
Thank you. There is no leave of absence, but we do have an apology from Councillor Wee Smith. Would someone like to move that apology be accepted? Just indicate, please.
I'll move that way.
Councillor Johnston. And a seconder, please. Councillor Angus. I'll go through the list again for indicate your approval to receive that apology from Councillor Wee Smith. Councillor Boothby.
Yes.
Angus.
Yes.
DeVries.
Yes.
Haybick.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Barrett.
Yes.
Troop.
Yes.
Schilling.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Hearn.
Yes.
Thank you, members. That apology from Councillor Wee Smith has been carried. We'll move to the item that we have on the agenda for this special meeting. And as I indicated earlier, that's the draft 2020-21 annual budget and business plan, rate revenue options. With that in mind, this is simply just for council to consider the options that we asked for following the recent budget workshop, and council is to consider the general rate revenue along with the waste and community wastewater management system services charges to be included in the draft annual budget and business plan and annual review of the long-term financial plan for consultation. Members, you'll remember that we talked about some various options, and staff have now come back with a general rate revenue increase from 0 to 1.75, with the modelling across the scope of that, along with the option 2, which is a zero general rate revenue increase for both service costs and increase in growth. Members, the CEO, is there anything further you wish to add or clarify any points?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just got two things to add. One is to highlight from a question I had earlier that what the indices that apply are in Australia at the moment. This is the March CPI at 2.4 and the local government price index at 1.6. They're my two things. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, members. Is there any questions that you wish to comment on? I'll use the attention bar and I'll just Councillor DeBreeze.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to move the recommendation with option 6, which is the 1.5% plus 1% growth.
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Johnston. So is everyone clear what that motion was, or do you want that read out further? Any comments? As the mover of the motion, you wish to speak to that, Councillor De Vries?
Look, I'm happy to, and I'll go into it in detail if there are any people who are going to object. Does anyone want to object? If not, I'll just do a quick summary for the benefit of the public. All right. Well, basically, the council is looking to balance a couple of issues. The first one was we want to keep the rate of the rate increase as low as possible. As the CEO has just referenced, the local government index is at 1.6, which means basically if we are to maintain the level of service that we are currently doing and did nothing else, we would need to raise 1.6 additional on top of the income that we're currently doing. I think 1.5 is a reasonable approximation of that. It's slightly below the local government index. There was talk at one point of getting it down to 1.25. Just to put that in context, the difference between 1.25 and 1.5, which is what I'm proposing, is literally the difference of $5 a year per household. Putting that in further context, that means that I'm asking you to pay an additional 10 cents per household per week, or $5 for the husband and $5 for the wife, which is that's assuming it's a nuclear family. A very small amount. That is also the same for farms, for hotels and businesses and so forth. For light industry, it's actually lower than that. It's $3, which would be like 3 cents a week. For a winery, the difference is effectively $17 a year, which works out about $1.50 a month. And we were talking about this before, that there is a point where the savings that you are making per individual are nominal, but the impact that that would have on the forward years can be considerable. And when we were actually comparing a zero rate increase, again, this is for the benefit of anybody who's joining us who wasn't part of those early discussions, that could have blown a hole of about $8 to $9 million in our forward estimates, which would mean significant reductions of services for the community. And all of the feedback that I've been getting from the community is that they do not want that, certainly not at this time. And this is the time when the state and federal governments would like us to be actually driving the economy, not retarding it. So for all of those reasons, I think the 1.5 is a reasonable approach. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't care about the fact that people are struggling. We've already introduced the opportunity for people to pay their rates at a later stage, those people who are currently suffering. And this also enables us to have a significant amount of money set aside to target those people who are going to need assistance. And I would rather see that money targeted in a way where it actually affects those people who are most at need, rather than just sort of a blanket across the board reaction. I think that's kind of the overall summation. Again, for the benefit of those members of the community listening in, this is something that was sort of thrashed out over, I guess, the last 2 months by the council, and we've been sort of agonising over the process, trying to get the balance right. I believe that this is probably the right option. The alternative would have been we could have gone down a little bit to 1.25 or gone up to 1.75. I think the 1.5 seems to strike a reasonable balance, and hopefully we'll have the consensus of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnston, do you wish to comment?
Look, I just like to support what Dave said in general, but I also want to point out that this is a very prudent way of approaching the issue. It's not an extreme rate rise, and it's certainly not a capping on the rate. So I think we've chosen to sit right in the middle, and as Councillor De Vries points out, if we're at least covering the retrospective rate of inflation, we've got some hope of maintaining balanced books, even though we're going to face additional expenses through some of the things that we have to do against SARS-CoV-2 and the likelihood that we'll have to support ratepayers with targeted support. Thank you.
Members, is there any further comments? Councillor Boothby, Deputy Mayor Boothby.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Again, I'd like to support the recommendation in terms of striking that balance. I think a lot of the real pain may not be felt in our community until after 28 September, when the JobKeeper and JobSeeker substantial artificial buoyancy to the economy is removed. And I think there is more and more pressure on local government across the board to be having a seat at the table in terms of being able to provide matched funding for stimulus projects. There's also, the reports indicating that the workforce may not return to normal levels until 23, 24. So we do have to have the capacity longer term to be able to support our community as well. So it's obviously trying to give some assistance in the immediate term in terms of 2021, but we do have to be mindful of our own financial sustainability to be a core service in the community moving forward. So I think there's going to be highly likely that we will be having to consider another tranche of financial support in addition to what we've already put in the recovery plan already. In the second half or towards the end of the calendar year. And we have to have the ability to support, as Councillor De Vries said, provide support in a targeted way where it is actually needed. And I think to a certain extent we don't even know that yet, really, in terms of what that will be. So I'm very supportive of that as a sort of median ground that is responsible for us as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to add, I've noticed the Australian Bureau of Stats, they've released some figures today, and what I did notice is the GDP, gross domestic product, fell by 3.3% in the March quarter. And if you take away the government spending, it would have actually fell by 0.7%. So, as our Deputy Mayor said, I don't think we're really going to know what's going to happen until September. And I think there's still a fair bit of pain still on the way for people. And this budget allows us to continue to spend and support people in the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? Members, I'll put the motion and I'll go through the councillor names and indicate your support from there. So, Deputy Mayor Boothby?
Yes.
Angus?
Yes.
De Vries?
Yes.
Havik?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Troop? Schilling?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Hearn?
Yes.
Those against? Councillor Troop?
Sorry, no, I was a yes. Must have just cut out.
Sorry, I missed that one. So that's Councillor Troop. So all in favour. The motion is carried. Members, that's all we have on this special meeting agenda for this evening. So with that, I will close the special meeting, and our next scheduled meeting is on the 16th of June 2020 at 9 a.m. Thank you for your attendance.